Hi guys, welcome back to Moments with Gabby. I am your host, Gabrielle Mosa. Happy New Year, guys, and I'm so glad that you have joined me this new year. This new year, we'll be doing things a little bit differently. We'll be having different themes for each month. And this month, the theme is talking to youths who have been doing great things in the society. So with me in studio today is the founder of The Good, The Bad, and The Bisharian, Billie. He'll be telling us more about this foundation or movement. Stay tuned for more. You don't want to miss this episode. In the meantime, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell notification to be notified for new episodes. Karibu sana wakili. A new title.
Now mtu asiniite bila hiyo title.
The wakili has to be there.
Those 4 years, wakili Billie.
They have to account for something.
Yeah.
So how does it feel being a wakili?
At first, it was very bittersweet where you're looking at, okay, now life is getting more real.
Yeah.
Like it's not
adulting
is getting adulting.
Yes.
Where you're looking at, okay, now I have to start catering for my bills, etc. I think when you first live with your parents, you live in a privileged bubble where out of fuel ikipanda aje.
Anything that doesn't affect
you know.
Fuel imepanda who?
Bado pocket money kuje bado. But now thinking, okay, with this title comes more responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So of course there's that. So that's the bitter part where you're realizing, damn. But then again, there's a sweet part where
you finally do what you've always
like it now all accounts for something. And probably again the responsibility, like, wow, now I can finally be my own person
and earn my own money, do my thing.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. So what made you decide I want to be a lawyer? Is it something that you've always wanted ever since I was young? I knew.
For me, it's one of those things where first, I remember in class 2, I wanted to be a pilot. You know, those things. And then along the way, this wakili thing came about. I remember even I went for a trip in high school and I said, hey, when I grow up, I'm going to become the Chief Justice, you know.
But a man.
That dream really in your magic. So for me, it's one of those things where at least when you're choosing, you know, when you're from choosing unit, what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where what else could Billie really do? And it's one of those things again, if people say so much to you that you think, yes, this is something I really enjoy.
Yeah, by the way.
And so after studying, it's like, yeah, actually maybe I do enjoy this thing, you know. So probably in another life, you know, another thing in my other spheres of life, I podcast and do because these are things I'm passionate about. But at the end of the day, I'd want to be a wakili any day. So it's not something I've dreamt for the longest match for quite some time. Yes.
Okay, and how was the journey like? Studying for those 4 years. I'm sure law is intense. I'm sure some days you're like, okay, what am I doing here?
Is this a must?
Is it a must really?
Can go jazz up with this podcast though so I can get money instead of just doing this wakili manners. But I think, as I said, when you enjoy something, it's not too hard to do it. So of course, there are days you're just thinking, you're reading, you have case laws to read, you have judgments to read, and judgments can be pages long. You can even have a judgment that's 200. That's just a judgment. You've not, read probably the case facts and all that. So easier days than some days were easier than others.
For sure.
But I think it all counts for something. But then I'm told I'm going to Kessel in 2 weeks now. And that's the hardest.
Every lawyer I've talked to, they've said case and they're feeling bad.
Buzz.
Why? So, is it like that intense?
It is actually, because so like for me personally, in a university, we used to do about most semesters, at least we did 3 units for most semesters. Now I'm going to a place where it's like a crash course program where I'm doing 9 modules and the exams are...
That sounds crazy.
And they're all fitting all this law in these 9 months. So you have lecturers who won't teach the best, you have lecturers who just gloss over things, and so a bulk of what you need to do is on you.
Okay.
So...
Wait, let me ask. So, when you finish now law, does everyone get to go to the school of law? Like, do you have to have like a certain grade so that you enter, or you just go all of you?
You apply for it. So as long as you have a pass, you can...
And can you fail? Can you cause that to enter?
I've not had a very news because that was applied, but that would be new. Yani,
really?
Maybe I have AIDS, you'll go with any wakasema tu huyu. However, it's quite unfortunate that if you don't get a B in English or Kiswahili, even though you pass LLB, you can't enter KSL.
No way.
Yeah, so guys have tried going to court because of course, things happen in KCSE. So guys go probably abroad to UK, study, then want to come back to KSL. But guys have tried to go to court, guys have tried to, all those, but nothing.
That's interesting.
So you can even get your first class LLB, but once KCSE you put a B in English or Kiswahili, no.
Okay, that's interesting. Before we go to the good, the bad, and the Busharian, where do you see yourself in this low journey the next few years?
Hey.
Uh-huh.
And I jinx myself, but
no, manifest.
Real, and someone told me things that are protected by God, evil eye goosey.
No matter what you say, it will still come to pass.
True. Yeah. So you had it here first. Anyway.
Yeah.
So of course, for some time I want to practice traditional law, so that's obviously going to court and stuff. So be your resident Steve, what do you call him? Spectre?
Spectre.
Yes, and
Suits,
yeah, and so probably do that and then start my own law firm. So someone told me, if you don't come from big law has to come from you. So you see how there's like big radio stations for the industry, there's big TV stations. So for us, there's the tier 1 law firms, and so for me, that's the goal, to have my own tier 1 law firm. And of
creating the change I want.
Yes,
come on.
So everyone says, it's difficult.
But it's doable. I mean, they did it.
They did. Why not?
Who are you?
Who are I? I mean, So that's for me. That's definitely the goal. But as well, I'm also don't want to limit myself to Kenya. So I see myself also traveling quite a bit.
Exposure.
Yes, and not limiting myself to Kenya whatsoever. So even when guys tell me CJ Manenda, I'm like, good dream. But for me, for sure, the world is my oyster. Yeah.
And before we started this show, that's the same thing you said, the world is your oyster, and guys, believe it. Dream it. See it. Okay.
And you had it here first. It comes to pass.
Exclusive for the next 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the good, the bad, and the Busharian. First of all, that name is so interesting.
Yeah.
Where did it come from?
So the good, the bad is the act of depicting stories. So every story has these two sides of the coin.
Yeah,
so the good, the bad. So that's the first part. So the Busharian, of course, a lot of controversy, and I love how it sparks a lot of interest, because I remember the first time when I chose it, I was like, wow, why did I choose this name? Everyone's gonna think it's a Bush thing, Alliance.
Let me tell you, it was on Twitter everywhere. Like everyone was just like, please, Alliance boys,
again. Hey. But you see, that's the thing where it sparks interest. Anytime I say that name, everyone's like, huh? So the Busharian in this case is an anecdote for hardship. So a bush in this case is like a thicket. So that's sort of an anecdote for hardship. So Busharian is anyone really who has gone through hardship, and so they come to this podcast and tell their stories, or who's still going through hardship but wants to be a beacon of hope for other people. So that's basically what the Busharian stands for in that case.
That is actually an in-depth, thought well title. I'm just like, what? What? Like, that is so deep, very interesting.
So yeah.
And when did you start this?
So I started doing it on the 1st of January 2021. I remember 2020. All of you guys with talents are doing things.
Yeah, guys were kind of left, right, and center.
Hey, I'm just thinking, me kwani talent yangu.
What am I?
What am I?
Yeah.
And so I remember I used to talk a lot on my Instagram stories, and guys were like, Billie should start a podcast. At the time, I didn't even know what a podcast was. So do my research, and I'm like, I can actually get behind this. And so get a microphone and just say, I'm going to do about 5 episodes, and then see where this thing goes. Or just end it. For me, the purpose of the podcast initially actually was just to put myself out there, just to get on my
without any expectations.
Exactly. Musisikie ni sawa, support, just so I can say I did this, I came so I conquered, right? So I pre-recorded episodes before the 1st of January 2021. I said by 1st of January I gave myself a timeline.
New Year's resolution.
That day, lazima episode will drop, intro. And so I remember that's when I began 21st January 2021. Of course, guys are support. When you start something, everyone is supporting you. So I remember even on that first month, Spotify wasn't even established in Kenya. So it's called podcasts. And I remember we were topping the charts, and I'm like, hey,
it's doing well.
It's doing well.
It did very well, actually.
Right?
You guys even won the Pulse
award eventually.
That same year when you started, how crazy?
Hey, how crazy, nigga.
God.
God.
Yeah, you're like God. Bariki wengi.
Hey. So I remember someone told me, of course, this is just the hype of starting off because everyone wants to join the bandwagon, your friends are all in, but now you have to create your own audience. So it'll go from very high to low, and now you start building organically. And that's exactly what happened. So I think that's how I started. And then, of course, telling people stories every other week. Because something that has really set the podcast apart is the consistency. So every Sunday we release an episode, right? And someone told me consistency always wins the game.
Consistency is everything. I've seen you guys even on your 150 something.
Exactly,
like, that's crazy.
So clearly, it's born fruit because I'm thinking about us doing this every Sunday. And of course, the stats are not going crazy, especially because it's just audio. Because, in Kenya, we're used to video. If you now check the podcasters that are making the most views, or most of
them have a YouTube channel.
Exactly. Because as Kenyans, we're used to watching. We're not used to
sitting down and listening.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also, guys, think of a podcast like a radio. And like YouTube, where you set time apart to want to watch these people, look at it as passive noise. Mm-hmm. If you're driving, instead of listening to as recession podcast, when you're washing your dishes, etc.
Exactly.
Right? So we do this consistently for 9 months, and then guess what? We're nominated for our first award, Pulse Influencer Awards, and I'm thinking,
were you shocked?
Hey, I'm like, wait. Because one day I remember at a friend's house, and I'm seeing people are tagging the podcast page on Instagram. So I'm wondering, hey, am I being cancelled? But actually, it's about to be cancelled for some episode.
Really? Yeah, you went through the whole range of emotions, being cancelled.
So I'm thinking, quite what's happening? But when it's Instagram people don't really cancel you on Instagram.
Yeah, but Twitter. You can wake up one morning, you see you're trending, your heart just drops.
But there's no bad publicity.
All publicity is good publicity.
Anyway, so I check and get that nominating us for Pulse Awards. I'm like, hey, you guys, I remember that time we even had 700 followers. So I'm saying, hey, you guys, you're being overambitious. And at that time, the big players also being nominated,
You were against some crazy people who have been there for a while.
So I'm just thinking, hey, what are the odds? Small fish, big pond. And so we get nominated, and now voting round starts, right? And I said, the importance of this consistency that I spoke about earlier was building a community that believes in what we do, right? So Billie, you at this point now have 800 followers, but these 800 followers are willing to share with their family and friends the link to vote, right? I remember at the time, the person who was even leading us had 70K followers. And I told myself, if only a 10th of his followers vote, it's over.
That's it.
But you see, my people are telling their family members, vote for this guy.
You tell your aunties,
uncles, vote. Yeah. Right? And I'm like, that's sort of a gift where for a lot of guys, probably they'd be nominated, but people are not willing to go over and above to vote for them. Yeah. And I'm thinking, any other nominate podcast,
let's see that. Yeah.
So I remember we get into the final round of top 3. And therefore, the award, I'm home. It was a Saturday. So, of course, I'm in church, whatnot. Then I decide, I don't think I'm going for this award. Because maybe I'm a bad news as well. I'm like, what are the odds that I'll win this thing? As in, surely. So, I'm home. I'm even posting on my Snapchat that, hey, you guys, I'm home. Let's wait. And my people are telling me, Billie, put your imposter syndrome aside. Go for as we voted, we've done our part. So you go for the awards.
Yeah.
As we have
done our best.
Yes, and this is for the podcast. You don't think about yourself as Billie.
Oh, yeah.
This is for the podcast.
Yeah. Right? Imposter syndrome.
That makes sense. That first year, imposter syndrome was chattering me like crazy. So, and that's why they joke about me not ironing comes. Because I remember I wore my cardigan. And my mom was like, Billie, you're not leaving that house without ironing. I tried ironing, but time.
Yeah, that's how you were like, no, I'm done. I'm not going to shop. I go.
I'm like, even though I lose, at least I didn't put too much effort.
Yeah.
In dressing.
I wouldn't feel as bad.
So we get there, Zuri, Kenyans and Kenyan timing, it didn't go too far. So of course, again, something about the creative industry in Kenya, everyone knows each other, right? So of course, the gigs will always circulate around the same people.
Yeah.
And so of course, even with the awards, since they're the biggest players in the industry, of course they know each other.
Yeah.
Because you probably work together or you probably admire each other. So at that point, I remember I was just with my friend, and we're just solo because no one knows us, no one, you know.
You're the fresh guys.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember Podcast Influencer Award 2023, they read our names, and I was like, wow. And then the good, the bad, and the share, and I don't think I've definitely been happy like that, but that joy.
It was a high. It was felt like,
hey, what is happening, you know?
Yeah.
And so we accept the award. Of course, I remember that time I didn't get some of the most claps because again people don't know.
People don't know you that much. People are like, how?
Exactly.
How?
And then I just say my first line of my speech, and guys are like, "Hey, who is this?" Hey! Right? So, I remember the first line of that speech was, "A man's gifts makes room for him and brings him before great men," and that's a line I still go with till date because, you know, people undermine the gifts they have, but I think those are things that God gives you that can easily set you apart. Because sometimes you think, because you see, like in the system we've been grown up in 844. All of us, the metric uses education, but some of us maybe are not the most book smart.
Exactly.
But kuongea, we can talk to you hadi utuingize box hadi, you know.
Yeah.
So I say that my speech received the award, and you know, I always say who much is given, much is expected. Right? So that time, brands are now on your radar, because now everyone wants to
please, you're the hottest thing in town.
So everybody's like, okay, what's this about? And I remember we decided to sponsor a few kids' school fees, right?
Yeah.
And why this is the case is, so listening to stories every, okay, so Chinua Achebe says, the storyteller creates the memories survivors must have, otherwise surviving has no meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So listening to stories every Sunday, especially when you come from a somewhat privileged background, really opens your mind to what the world really is, right?
Yeah.
I remember someone comes to the podcast and talks about his story about how he used to walk from home to school barefoot. For us, it's only parents who say those stories, and we think.
And you think they're lying, like they're exaggerating.
You know,
you can tend to live in a bubble where you think life is.
You know,
I mean, yeah.
And so your peers saying these stories, and you know how every parent says they want a man in class. So you're just thinking, even these stories, every parent just says it to try to guilt trip.
Yeah.
And so you listen to these stories and you understand that, damn, this is actually a reality for people. I remember just saying that as some of us going to high school, we're choosing, do we want tafis, do we want butter, do you want shooters, you know?
Do I want Nutella? Do I want mushrooms?
What do I want? And I can have it all maybe, you know?
You can.
And for some of the stories in the podcast talk about those struggles, and I'm wondering, damn, this is actually a reality for people. One anecdote I'll give you is, I remember high school, guys used to be chased away for school fees, right? Our school fees per year, because it's in a public high school.
Which high school is it? Just say, I know you want to say.
No,
I know you want
to say it for me, clearly.
I know you want to say. Come on, go ahead, tell them.
You tell them which high school I was.
He was in Alliance. Oh, you see.
No, just.
He was in the Alliance, forgive me. The Alliance.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, because, you know, I was in a private primary school, I came to a public high school. In a public high school, you get to understand people from all walks of life. Because primary, again, we are very oblivious, but again, probably you guys are coming from the same social strata. In public high school, you see the rich, the people who own, you know, the people who own Kenya?
You think you own the people who own
Kenya? Yeah. The ones who come on visiting day with 3 cars with a chef to be visited. I pick you up, and then the ones who will never be visited won't even probably be dropping Form 1 and leaving Form 4, right? So the story I was giving was about school fees.
Mm-hmm.
So my school fees was 54K per year. For some people, they entered in Form 1 and paid. I don't know, shanga too. 54
per year.
Per year, you will come and live for how many hundred thousands?
We're here today because of you.
Next question. Right? So even most people would pay the 4 year school fees in once again, you get for month, the whole thing.
I mean.
And people would struggle to get this money. I remember, so guys used to be chased away from class because of school fees. For some of us, we'd want to be chased away because we think it's a cool thing. We think you'd be chased away, you go to town, play PS,
take a break study.
Hey.
Yeah.
Or maybe even go home if your home is close by, eat chapo and come back to school.
For some guys, it was a
real struggle. You know, in hindsight, you think about that privilege and you think about how oblivious you are. I think I don't know if it's the naivety of youth where you're just thinking, damn, the people who literally, even though they went home, they wouldn't come back to school with anything. Yeah. Were still the people who wouldn't even have transport to leave the school gate. So for them, it was a lose-lose situation. Yeah. And that's why I decided, let's sponsor a few guys' school fees. Because again, I understood the value of education being the equalizer. So you see, when you come from privilege as well, you don't value education as much because you think, Billie, you can podcast, you can... One of the guys actually told me, for you, Billie, at least you can podcast and do law school at the same time. For me, I literally cannot do anything apart from study. Because for me, KCPE, I got my 400 and something, got a scholarship to school. High school, got my A, got a scholarship to uni abroad, literally. And now I'm doing a master's with a scholarship program. And so for me, education has literally been the equalizer. At any point, if my education is impeded upon, then I fall back to the shackles of poverty. So for me, education really has been the equalizer. Of course, he's dined with some of the greatest people just because of that. And it's just like, wow.
Open doors for you.
Literally. So for some of us who define education and think, the education system right now is corrupt.
University, I must
exactly. Yeah. When you have the privilege of even having such thoughts, for someone, it's like, there's no...
For them, it's do or die.
Do or die.
That's how they're coming out of the streets.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's why we decided after too much is given after the Pulse Award, we decided to host our first annual dinner to raise funds to sponsor a few kids' school fees. And so, so that's what we do. We sponsor a few kids' school fees. And of course, at the time, we partner with even Joge, Safaricom, and they're like, so probably there's something here. I remember also, the gala was just a celebration of ending season 1 and, all these great things that have happened in this 1 year. And so we hold it at Weston. I remember we had about 40 people come. And it's just like, okay, we're growing. So I remember this dinner was in such a short time frame because I released me last minute. So I released this poster about 2 weeks today. Actually, 1 week today. So the idea I had it for about 1 month, but I released it one week to the dinner because I had to plan a bit of stuff. Yeah. And just thinking, guys are willing to remove 3,000, 3,500 for in 1 week means probably we're maybe doing something, just maybe. Doing something right. So,
all right, let's put a pin in that. We'll come back to that in just a bit. So, guys, we're going to take a short break. In the coming segment, we'll talk more about his charity work and how he's helped the society, more about his gala, and we'll ask him a few fun facts about himself. Stay tuned for more. Welcome back, guys, and thank you for staying tuned. I hope you have left a comment there on how the conversation is going. So now let's talk more about your charity work. You've done different things such as helping elderly people. You've helped kids get school fees like you've mentioned previously.
Yes.
You've done things with the environment even. So how do you create this specific event and say, guys, let's do this? And how do you execute it successfully? Yes. And also, you also do events where guys just come and chill and enjoy.
Yes.
So how do you decide this time we're serious, this time we're chilling? Yeah.
Yeah. So, as you said earlier, first probably it is a movement. Maybe guys actually tell me that a lot. I'm like, you guys talk.
It's a movement, actually.
You guys.
I like how you mentioned it's a podcast. It's a movement.
Someone actually told me that because I'm Manigamba too, but I just say, let me put it there for the banter.
Anyway, since you've insisted.
Insist, but maybe it's actually coming to life. I think, so with my legal background, I think I am able to pair it with my podcast really well. So let's start with, so the first time I do a community service was now 2022 January. Again, tying up to who much is given, much is expected. So we had the charity. We've had the podcast gala, the charity dinner, and we decide there are people who first don't know what a podcast is, second may never know what a podcast is, and also probably don't even have devices to stream a podcast, right? So how else are we reaching these people?
How are you going to impact them?
Exactly. My target for the podcast is people touch people. At the end of the day, it's all about human connections. No matter how much money you make, it's always about, you always hear the rich people talking about how they're lonely, how they don't have friends. at the end of the day, it's all about that human connection.
Oh.
And so in January, we decided well, let's do the community service. So we did it at an old people's home. So in high school, we used to go to our old people's home every Sunday. So it's like, why not just carry it forward? And because it's easier, they know us, it'll be very easy for us to agree to do that. So we do that first community service at an old people's home. And so so I remember guys even fundraised very immensely that the next week we decided let's do shelter home for the GBV. At that time I wasn't thinking about how it makes financial sense. It is, I was just thinking, this money, I don't need to me, So we would go to a shelter home, Usikime there.
Oh yeah, the one in Kibera. There's one in Kibera.
Yeah, they have many branches, right? So we will go to one where women who are facing GBV are being sheltered and whatnot. So you see, even with listening to stories weekly, there are stories that when you hear from people on ground, it's just very different. You become more empathetic and you realize, again, circles back to your privilege. You understand that a lot of us are grown in privilege that you never understand, some of these issues that people actually go through, right?
That's true.
So that's why, with my legal background now. So in university, I did a unit called Gender and the Law, right? So Gender and the Law, when you go to a shelter home for GBV, you get to understand these things from a social aspect and even now from even a more legal background.
Okay.
So maybe as the founder, I don't know why I say selfish, but from my angle, that's how I see it now. So how else are we impacting these people? How else can we connect these people to poke and probably help them, aid them if it's a court case, etc. With the older people, I did a unit called Equality Law, right? So with Equality Law, you could talk about, equality, gender equality. You talk about equality in terms of age groups, etc. Right? So for me, it gives me a deeper sense of understanding these things. I remember even when we went to the GBV place, they had children. I actually did a children's home visit in last October. And with the children's visit, I did a unit called Children and the Law. So you understand how the law comes into play and how it's not, because guys just think, it's not that deep, but it is actually, that deep.
When you say it like that from your perspective,
yes, it is that deep. And definitely from different practitioners, especially for us who are transitioning, all of us see these things from different lenses, and that's why we are building this community. Because for you, probably from a journalist perspective, you see things differently. You understand that when you go to a children's home, Billie, you can't take videos of their faces. Even from a legal background, I understand that, right? Of course, you want to show that you did this because that's how you are accountable to your audience, that you guys actually went, contributed, and you guys actually went. But there are things you have to censor, the things that can't be done. And so, from a legal background, is how I'm able to see some of these minorities and marginalized groups and say, why not do something about this? And I remember when we went to the children's home, we decided let's be more impactful, because everyone goes to a children's home, we'll all donate clothes, we'll donate food, but then leave. But for us, we decided we're going to first spend the whole day with them, cook for them, wash their clothes, all that good stuff. But as well, for this one, we decided let's do a dental camp. Right? So how you bring a twist in this community service. So you see, with the dental camp, it was actually very impactful. So I have friends who are in dental school who are finishing, but then they have to do those practicals. So that's how you bring them on board. But as well, of course, you need licensed practitioners.
Exactly.
So what do? We write emails, we write proposals, and they come on board and say, we're willing to partner with you. So they come on board, they give us the toothbrush, toothpaste for each child, and check their teeth. So they check their teeth, what they could extract, that they extracted, and said, for the ones who need surgery, we'll come next Saturday and pick them. This is on their expense. Pick them, take them to hospital, do whatever they need to be done for free, and bring them back to hospital. And we're like, that's impact that these people will think about for a lifetime. Because again, someone was telling me, of course, these children have abandonment issues where everyone comes and leaves. So all of us will come, my group will come this week.
But how have you made a mark on their lives?
Exactly. So that's how I reconciled these two aspects and decided, yes, let's do this. And of course, I can't underplay the aspect and the importance of my audience, because they're the ones who bring these ideas to life.
Exactly, like that dental idea is like...
Yeah, exactly. Someone actually told me, Billie, we can actually do this, because for me, I didn't even think about the dental. I'm like, say less. For me, I'm more of a doer than a conceptualizer.
Thinker.
So, yeah, I didn't understand that. So you see, for you, probably, you can easily spot business opportunities. You can easily say, you can do this. For me, it's very hard.
And you need such people in a society.
Yes.
Because the thinkers can't, now executing it becomes
hard.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm an executor. Bring me the idea. Can we work with it? I'm game. Let's do this.
Yeah.
You know, so yes.
That's very interesting. And I like how you've said you reach out to brands. You have done a partnership with Safaricom and I don't know what else.
Yeah.
Are you the one who shot your shot? Am I the ones who approached you?
So I shot my shot. I think as of course, in this age of self-love, we love kujigamba and feeling some sense of importance, or sometimes for importance. However, I remember when you're starting off, you're the one who needs them more than they need you, right? I remember they sponsored me about 300 Gs. You know, and that's a podcast that's been running for 1 year. You know, that's a sponsorship they give people who have been in the game.
And some people will never even...
Exactly. So, other people, when you're starting off, that is your pro bono phase. That is the time you're building your portfolio.
Yeah.
So be willing to do some things for free so be willing to take some things for exposure. Be willing to, you know, all of us want to, you know, I don't know if it's lie to ourselves, but tell ourselves we know our worth, but you need to know when to cut your losses.
Yourself,
yes, when to, So for me, so far I've still been shooting my shot. Of course, a lot of people shoot their shots. So how again are you differentiating for yourself from the people shooting their shots?
Why should they choose you?
Exactly.
Someone else? Yeah.
And then again, you understand for them again it's a business and it's a game of numbers. So of course, the people who are largest in the industry and people complain that these same people are being used over and over again. They have the numbers. They've generally
they can account for
exactly.
Yeah, why you should be.
So Billie with 1,000 followers, their money, you want to complain what's the ROI for their company? Because you have to look at it from that sense aspect as well, that they have to make sense out of this.
Yeah.
At the end of the financial year, the board will sit and tell them, so the marketing team, how have you accounted for these billions you guys have used in marketing? Use Billie, a micro-influencer with 1,000 followers, mkamlipa 1 million. Does that make sense at Akwako?
It doesn't, yeah.
So, yes, so for me, shooting my shot.
That's amazing. Believe in yourself, guys. It's so important and integral.
Yes.
Let's briefly talk about the galas. Me, I thought the galas guys are just going to eat and... Okay, I'm sorry, that's a bad...
Yeah, maybe they do it. Maybe these days they do.
So, your gala actually has meaning. You actually raise funds for people. Like the money that people pay is actually used for something else.
Yes.
Tell us briefly about that.
So the first one, I already talked about the first one where we partnered and guys raised funds. And so after that, my dad is an economist. He tells me, Billie, at the end of the day, this thing has to make financial sense. Even though it's charity, it has to make financial sense. The fuel, etc. has to be accounted for. Because you know me, Kitamba used to think that now the fuel is on my expense. So any money you get that contributed, ni ya charity, any other expense like fuel, mimi ndo nafaa kutoa. But even if you check all these big non-profit organizations,
they remove that from
they remove that from it has to make financial sense at the end of the day, right? And so the first one went very seamlessly. So the next one, I struggled to make financial sense out of it, right? And that's why the next one, the funds that came out of it was used for community service rather than scaling the school fees bit. Because you think about that time we sponsored about 210,000. You think about making it now more sustainable. You see, Equity can easily do that because, you know, all these big banks, organizations can easily do that. But for you, Billie, how can you easily... And so that's actually something I'm struggling with. How can I easily make it now very sustainable? Where? Because I even remember when we sponsored those kids, we sponsored Form 4 kids. Because, you know, a lot of times guys will sponsor from 1 Form 4. And some people who reach Form 4 don't have school fees arrears, and so no one ever thinks about them, right? As well, I remember, I don't know if this is one of the questions, but I remember where we chose Form 4 as well. I have my brother's classmate. My brother is in Yale University, right? Ivy League. For him, he had cleared his school fees and so he was able to be given his living certificate, etc. He had a classmate who was equally as brilliant, but since he couldn't clear his school fees, missed those opportunities because you can't apply. Imagine. I'm just like, damn, this is such a brilliant mind, but has to resort to the fate of staying in Kenya just because
of school
fees, right? And so that's why we decided one, Form 4s, but as well, we decided not to look at their grades because when you look at the intersectionality of it, sometimes the school fees bit impedes on you performing well in class.
Yeah.
Right? Because you constantly, when Billie's not thinking about school fees, you're constantly thinking about, damn, the next time I'll just out of class, the next time how is family at home, whatnot. And so that's one. Yeah, exactly. So we said we won't even look at your grade because
I love that.
A lot of people will want to look at because a lot of people want an ROI of some sort that I'm betting on you to perform well and then I can give you a scholarship. But I was like, you know what? No,
everybody deserves a chance.
Exactly. And so so for the next gala dinner, back to the gala dinners and raising funds, some of the money goes to now our community service because for me that has been more sustainable and more scalable compared to school fees. So probably, inshallah, we can get back to that. But as well, the dinners, as I said, are a celebration of a new ending a season and opening a new season. So of course, there has to be value at the end of the day. I remember the last one, the second annual dinner, we did a mentorship kind of thing. So we had a panel, very seasoned professionals came on board, and they talked about mentorship, scaling the professional industry. But after that, it vibes and inshallah, guys have fun, guys work, enjoy yourselves. I mean, sometimes I say, guys, it doesn't have to be always that serious. Like at the beginning, we make the gala serious, and then now, Kuchibambe,
we work so hard.
It's the end of the year. I mean, so even this past dinner, what was the theme? It was so what's next. I realized a lot of my audience as well are transitioning there.
Exactly, most of us are finishing school.
Exactly. Yeah. So of course we had panelists who talked about the transition periods, how they navigated that. Then at the end of the day again, I had fun, And of course, realizing we're scaling, last dinner I had 150 people. And you can imagine, I'm having about over 110 people paying 4,000 in January. And in a span of, I'm really supposed to 3 weeks to the event. I'm just thinking, damn. So of course, probably there's something we might be doing right that with these galas, the people who look forward to the galas. I even have my international audience saying, Billie, tell us when the dinner is so we can plan our tickets around the dinner. I'm like, hey, you guys.
I'm making an impact.
Hey, so guys love to be part of that and love the impact they are seeing.
Yeah.
And of course, as well, I can't downplay the aspect of personal branding because at least for the podcast as of yet, I've not been able to separate myself from the podcast, right? So there's obviously the element of we're trusting Billie enough to want to support his initiative, because otherwise, if Billie was a rogue person, dash. So so the gala is also, a source of joy, fun, celebration, but as well, I always say at the end of the day, this value.
That's very interesting. I like how your mind works. It's just fascinating.
Really?
It's crazy. I mean, for your age, you've done amazing things. People who are 20-something, okay, although the race doesn't go to the swift, but you've done a remarkable job.
Thank you.
Before we wind up, I want to ask you about 3 fun facts. Not 3 fun facts. 3 questions about yourself. You'll have to think a bit.
Yeah.
Number 1, what do you want people to feel when they listen to your podcast? How do you want someone to come out of their feeling?
Community. I think I want people to feel like they're less alone, that people are going through these struggles.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are growing up very caged up. Our worlds are very high, And some of us don't even have people who hold space for us in that way. Some of us don't have these authentic conversations. Because I realize a lot of us go through similar things, but none of us talks about it.
Yeah.
All of us want to be gangster, or sometimes we've not hit that level of vulnerability. So I love when people listen to the podcast and they give me feedback like, damn, this really resonated with me. I feel less alone. And I even remember an idea we had of how we can move it forward from just the podcast and actually help people more. Still in conceptualization phase. But yes, I want people to feel like they're part of our community, something greater, something bigger than themselves, and then less alone.
So truly, it's not a podcast; it's a movement.
Yes, as I said.
What inspires you?
What inspires me?
Not only intense.
Not only intense. What inspires me? What inspires me?
Cricket.
I wonder. But I draw a lot of my inspiration from, if I'm being honest, the Bible. I think I try to live my life. Try. Emphasis the try.
Well try. Don't worry about all try.
Because we are Christians, not hypocrites.
Give us a break.
It's not easy, but trying.
Yeah.
Trying. Because of course the Bible and God calls us to be better people. Love your neighbors, love yourself, and all that good stuff. I think calls us to be better people, not only for ourselves but for society. And I say, as much as I won't do the traditional preaching the gospel and come and tell you and be preachy,
let my actions show.
Exactly. At the end of the day, you'll say, damn, there's something different about this, and there's something.
And what is this making him different?
Exactly.
You tell them it's God. And it's a way of preached.
Exactly. So may my life be the only. My life might be the only Bible someone might ever read. That's why even when I told you, when I say a man's gifts makes room for him and brings before great men, that's a psalm. People just think the Bible is so simplistic, but when you understand and read the Bible and implement some of those verses, it's just like,
it's crazy.
Damn!
Like God knew what he was.
He cooked. Let him cook.
What?
He cooked. Yeah. So really, that's even for me. Like the verse of my year, the verse of this year for me is, your ways are not my ways, your thoughts are not my thoughts. Right? Just saying, I'm letting go and letting God. That sometimes I don't know what's going to happen this year. I'm panicking about Kessel.
But God knows.
God knows.
Yeah.
God will bring me to moments with Gabby, and who knows what's come out of this. Sometimes you just never know.
Yeah.
So I think that's my biggest inspiration.
That's very interesting. Hallelujah. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? That's the last question.
Next 5 years, I think I'll just circle back to what I said in the beginning.
For both the podcast and Billie himself.
So podcast will have scaled, probably, inshallah, have a team. Have the podcast now bigger than myself.
Yeah.
Right now I've realized that she's bigger than myself. I remember in the past dinners, I didn't know everyone was coming for the dinner. The last dinner that she had, the many people that I didn't know, I'm just like,
that's
God
how you know
damn!
Yeah.
So definitely have a team that's bigger than me. Definitely be doing video. Definitely be flying around. I'm like, the guest is where? South Africa. So I have 5 guests in South Africa. Let's go to South Africa. Let's record episodes and So definitely, I think that's where I'd love to see myself in the next 5 years with the podcast. With myself, I think I realized I want to be a human being and not a human doing. A lot of times we are constantly saying, because the right answer probably would be a lawyer in a big law firm, or working at the Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
But I want to be a human being and impacting lives. I want to just, wherever that will be, in whatever capacity that is. If I'm in NGO, if I'm working for the government, if I'm, switching locations and flying all around the world, may I continue impacting lives, may I continue, doing probably what I'm doing, but maybe greater, maybe bigger, maybe with big organizations, partnering with, effecting policy. So at the end of the day, may I be a person touching people. So yes.
Okay, thank you. Those are very deep words, and you have very interesting lines. Human being, not human.
Doing.
So thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you have really enjoyed the episode. Personally, I've enjoyed myself. Thank you, Billie, for coming. Tell the people where they can find you on your social media platforms.
Shameless plug. So my personal Instagram is at it's your boy Billie. In fact, straight into it's Wakili Billie.
Yeah. Please, honestly, you have worked hard for that. You have to know.
At first I was actually thinking, am I being cocky about? How people are like, big is in our face. But I'm like, again, personal branding. One day we can have a podcast to talk about personal branding. where the reason you know Safaricom is because Safaricom is constantly in your face.
In your face everywhere.
Everywhere, literally.
You never forget that.
Maybe this color is even Safaricom advertising, you know.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where the moment I'm constantly in your face now, maybe we now need lawyers probably in the future.
They'll be like, by the way, Billie's a lawyer.
Exactly.
He's a podcaster, but a lawyer.
Anyway, Instagram at It's Your Boy Billie. Podcast platform. Podcast Instagram is at The Good, The Bad, and The Shine Podcast. Follow us at Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, or anywhere, any leading podcast streaming platform. Not yet on YouTube, but subscribe. Coming. So yes, that's where you can find me.
All right, thank you guys for tuning in. As usual, I've been your host, Gabrielle Mosa. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you until next time, guys. Bye.